The 2024 MLB season is right around the corner, and you know what that means. It is time to gamble on some MLB win totals. I'm very, very excited. My name is Peter Apple. This is my betting resume over the last 3 seasons, whether that's in the NFL or in Major League Baseball, and we've been wildly profitable except for last season. So this is my revenge tour, and currently I have about 25 units pending on MLB futures. And you're probably saying, Peter, that is so much, right? That's overdoing it. I bet when I see value, and I see value on a lot of teams this season. So I'm going to go through each one of them, tell you whether I would bet the over or the under, I'd pass, or maybe I have a lean either way. So what numbers are we going to be using, right, for these win totals? Well, BetMGM has us covered, so we're going to be referencing their lines. And it's a good idea to do so because we have a promo going with BetMGM. Download the BetMGM app on iOS or Android. Use code JUSTBASEBALL when you deposit, and then once that deposit is in, put $5 at standard odds minus 110, and you will get $150 loaded into your account to use on all of these futures. It's a no-brainer, folks. No-brainer. But remember, gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older, and terms and conditions apply. So, remember, we're going to go through each individual team. I'm going to give you their projected win total by BetMGM, and then I'm going to give you my projected win total. That's how I found value on a lot of these different teams. And to save you a lot of the quantitative talk, right? Instead of throwing you a bunch of numbers, we're going to go through each team qualitatively, if that's the right word. It's making me sound kind of smart. I'm going to tell you more about my feelings are on the team, maybe some offseason additions, my overall judgment on the team in a short paragraph. But I've already crunched the numbers. And how did I get to my number? My projected number for each team? Well, Fangraphs has about 6 different projection systems. Pacoda has their projections for the 2024 MLB season, and there's plenty others online. I aggregated all of them to get the average number, and then what I did is I went in, crunched my own numbers, and then boosted or declined that number based on my evaluation of the team. Without further ado, let's start in the American League, and we're going to go in alphabetical order, so it's not by divisions. And a good place to start is with the Baltimore Orioles. Their projected win total is 90.5, and my number is 89.5. There's a ton of hype around this Orioles team this year, and for good reason. They didn't lose any key cogs to free agency, and they added one of the best pitchers on the planet in Corbin Burnes. Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman have the talent to compete for MVPs as well, and Grayson Rodriguez showed why he's one of the best young pitchers in the game during the second half of last season. Also, go check out our interview with Grayson Rodriguez. Should be up here somewhere. With hype often comes inflated numbers. Kyle Bradish, one of the best pitchers in baseball last season, had a sprain in his elbow currently. His timetable is unknown. It's looking good, but again, it's tough to tell. Felix Bautista, one of the best closers in baseball, won't be available for the 2024 season. The line opened at 88.5 and has since moved to 90.5. A lot of bettors are investing in the Orioles this season. The Orioles were on the right side of one-run games last year. If you flipped every one-run game for them last year, they finished 87-75. I do not want to fade the Orioles by any means, but I'm not taking their overs. The Boston Red Sox projected win total is 79.5, and my number is 79.5. Last year, the Red Sox win total was 78.5. They finished with 78 wins. This season, the win total is at 79.5, but heavily juiced towards the under. The number feels right because they didn't add or subtract much this offseason. Lucas Giolito wasn't the sexiest free agent, but he does have upside. He eats through innings, a luxury the Red Sox haven't had much of in their rotation. They also added Tyler O'Neill, who has a ton of talent, but hasn't really shown it since 2021. They traded away Chris Sale, but the Red Sox are hoping that their second baseman of the future is Vaughn Grissom. I also make this number 79.5, right? They were on the wrong side of one-run luck last year, and Fangraphs pegged them for 81 wins. They'll likely be around this number again. This is really a no bet for me, but I'll have a slight lean towards the under just because the division is so stacked with talent. The Chicago White Sox projected win total is 63.5, and my number is 64.5. Last year, the White Sox opened with an 84.5 win total. It was bet down to 82.5, and for good reason. 2023 was a disaster for the White Sox. They won 61 games, falling short of their projected win total by over 20 wins. While the White Sox looked like a dumpster on fire last season, I'm going to lean towards the over. It wasn't long ago that the White Sox were expected to compete for the AL division crown. They subtracted from last year's team, whether that be Jake Berger, Tim Anderson, Mike Clevenger, Lucas Giolito, Lance Lynn. I keep listing names. There's a lot of them. Chicago still has some talent, though, headlined by Luis Robert and Dylan Cease. The bullpen is a mess, and the rotation looks to be the worst that it's ever been. However, I don't think it's enough to garner a win total that only goes under if they lose 99 plus games. It does seem like an overreaction. That said, the White Sox are not getting any of my money in 2024 because I expect them to finish last in the division, and I only see one win of value. The Cleveland Guardians' projected win total is 78.5. My number is 80.5, and here comes my first official bet. This line's just too low. Last year, the Guardians entered the season with an 86.5 win total. It led the division in the preseason, but they ended up finishing third in the American League Central. The reason it's lower than most years is they finished with 76 wins and did basically nothing in the offseason to improve their squad. While they didn't add free agents or make any major trades, they are fully healthy to start the year. Tristan McKenzie only logged 16 innings last year, and Bieber didn't finish above 130. The rest of the rotation is filled with talented youngsters, including Tanner Bybee. Check out our interview with Tanner Bybee, somewhere up here, who finished second in Rookie of the Year voting. Gavin Williams has an electric arm, and Logan Allen is the definition of solid. The team relied on rookies at a historic level due to injuries to McKenzie and Bieber. Bybee, Williams, and Allen racked up 341 strikeouts, tied for the most by an AL rookie trio since 2000, and tied for the second most since 1974. They also pitched a combined 349 innings last season, the fourth most by an MLB rookie trio over the past 10 years. While they didn't add, they didn't subtract either. I'm expecting Andres Jimenez to bounce back, maybe not to MVP form like he was in 2022, but better than what he showed last season. Steven Kwan is also a player I expect to exceed his 100 WRC plus from last season. Again, check out that interview with Tanner Bybee. They also have talented youngsters at the plate, including Bo Naylor and Kyle Manzardo. I don't need to tell you how good Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor are. It also helps that they would have gained 4 more wins last year if one-run games were flipped. Not to mention, they were tied for the MLB lead in walk-off losses with 12. I don't expect that to happen again. There is plenty of hype surrounding this division. Plenty of people are excited about the Royals and the Tigers, and the Twins had a great year last year, right? The forgotten team here is the Guardians because there isn't that same excitement. I feel as if this is the most balanced roster in the Central, and the value on them to rise to the top is way too much to pass up. I still make the Twins the favorites in this division, but I have the Guardians as the clear number 2, and I make the division odds plus 300 for Cleveland and the win total at 80.5. I put 2.2 units on the over 78 earlier on. I would still take it at 78.5. And I put 1 unit on their division odds at plus 400. I'm very high on this Guardian squad in 2024. The Detroit Tigers have an 81.5 projected win total on BetMGM, but my number, 80.5. You might be shocked to hear that. All the fans of the Just Baseball Show know that I have been talking up the Tigers a ton, and apparently the market was already ahead of me. Right? I'm really excited about the Tigers in 2024. If it all comes together, it could be the team that ends up winning the division, right? However, a lot has to go right. And the more and more I did research into this team, the more I came away with the players I'm really excited about, or a few players, not the entirety of the team. Now, Tarek Skubal, we know what my thoughts are on him. So freaking talented. It can win the Cy Young. You might hear about him when we do the awards YouTube video and season-long props. Stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button. It's hard to find left-handers with multiple off-speed pitches that sit 96 miles an hour with their fastball. The trio of Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, and Kerry Carpenter, for a lack of a better term, just make me happy. All of them have all-star potential. Cole Keith has a shot at Rookie of the Year at third base, and Parker Meadows showed some potential last year. Jake Rogers even hit 21 home runs as a catcher. They also have a bullpen that I expect to be in the upper half of the league. There's a lot to dream on here, but it's not all roses. The rotation as a whole makes me nervous. What does Jack Flaherty even look like? Kenta Maeda hasn't thrown 150 innings in a season since 2019. Matt Manning, Reese Olson, Casey Mize, they're all talented, but they just haven't produced at the big league level yet. As much as I love Skubal's talent, he's never thrown over 150 innings in 4 seasons. I'm more in love with the players that I love. I'm more in love with the players that I love than my love for the team that is the Detroit Tigers. It's a pass for me at 81.5. The Houston Astros projected win total is 92.5. Another bet for you, because my number is 93.5. The Astros only won 90 games in 2023. I use the word only because that's their lowest mark in a full season since 2016. The Dodgers have the best roster in baseball, but come playoff time, my pick to win the World Series is the Houston Astros. I've learned my lesson on betting World Series futures before the season. The value is just never quite there, right? I'll look to bet them in the middle of the season when I see value on them. But let's talk about the actual regular season win total. This is one of the best rosters that Houston has had since they started this run in 2016. It's many of the same offensive pieces, but a big difference is Yainer Diaz taking over at the catching position over Martin Maldonado. Chas McCormick is no longer your fourth outfielder. He's one of the best left fielders in the game. Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman. I implore you to find a better foursome in a lineup than that in the American League. It's also a solid defensive team, ranking 11th last year in outs above average. The rotation has some question marks, but I'm pretty optimistic that it's going to work out. Justin Verlander continues to defy Father Time. Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, I don't think anybody has any big problems with them. But then who steps up after them? Well, I fully believe in a Hunter Brown breakout, and then they have Luis Garcia and Lance McCullers Jr. returning at some point. And then you got Jose Urquidy and Ronel Blanco, who I actually am pretty high on, waiting in the wings, right? They have so much depth on the starting pitching side. The trio of bullpen arms at the back end might be the best I've ever seen. And I don't say that lightly, right? Josh Hader, Brian Abreu, Ryan Presley, they're all top 10 relievers in baseball. The bullpen as a whole isn't as deep as prior years, but it's so unbelievably dominant at the top. You tell me, better trio in the last 20 years. Royals, 2015, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know if they beat these guys. Last season, the Astros opened up with a win total of 97.5. This season, 91.5. It's too steep of a drop-off for Houston just because of last year's results. I make the line 93.5. I bet 2.2 units on over 91.5 when the lines came out, and I'll look to play World Series futures playoff stuff more in the middle of the season. At 92.5, I would just lower your unit size based on value alone. Realistically, I think they're going to win 100-plus games, so I feel very confident still at 92.5 on the over for the Houston Astros. Kansas City Royals projected win total is 72.5. My number, 72.5. I'm not just saying this. I'm as excited to watch Royals baseball as any team in Major League Baseball this season. Not because they'll be better, but it's a massive year for their development moving forward, and they have some of the most talented players on the planet. Cole Reagans is a freak. He's been up to 101 miles an hour with a fastball with 20 inches of induced vertical break. That is disgusting. He also has 4 off-speed pitches to go along with his alien heater. If he maintains his velocity, he could win the Cy Young. Bobby Witt Jr. signed a massive extension this offseason for a reason. He's the new age Trey Turner who can win a Gold Glove at shortstop, something Trey has not been able to do. They also have Vinny Pasquantino, who has the potential to be one of the best first basemen in the game. They also added reinforcements to the rotation, signing Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo. The problem for me is this team still feels like they're 1 or maybe even 2 years away. We can't forget they lost 106 games last year, and if you flip every one-run result, they would have won 55. I make the line 72.5, and I thought I was being really optimistic. My line aligns with the market. It's a pass for me. The Los Angeles Angels have a projected win total of 71.5, and my number, 72.5. I'm low on the Angels this year, and if you polled 10 baseball fans, I think all 10 would say the same. You lose Shohei Ohtani, and when you had him last year, you won 73 games. They made some nice additions to the bullpen, and I don't mind the rotation, but truthfully, I'd rather cut a tree down with my mouth than invest on either side of this team. I prefer to put them in the rearview mirror to watch the other 29 teams. I will always root for Mike Trout, and I like Zach Neto. I like Logan O'Hoppe. Sure, I'll lean towards the over, or I'll lean towards the under. My number says I should lean towards the over. I don't know. I really have no opinion. I'll just refer you to the tree reference on where you should put your money on the Angels. Just put them to the side. It ain't worth it. The Minnesota Twins have a projected win total of 85.5, but my number, 84.5. Twins are a fascinating case. They opened up with an 83.5 win total last season and finished with 87 wins. If you flipped one-run games, the Twins would have won 95 games last year. They also made it to the ALDS against the Astros, put up a decent fight. If the Twins retained all of their talent, I'd be much more bullish than I currently am. Losing Sonny Gray hurts badly. He finished second in Cy Young voting last season. Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, and Bailey Ober are a solid front three, but the depth is a tad concerning. They might be able to shoulder the load with a combination of Chris Paddock, Anthony DeSclafani, and Louis Varland, but it's kind of a guessing game. What they do have is an incredible bullpen. We saw how dominant they could be in the playoffs behind Yohan Duran. They added Justin Topa, Stephen Okert, and Josh DeMont in the offseason. While the rotation depth isn't ideal, it's still a great pitching staff from top to bottom, and the offense is powerful. They finished third in home runs last year, and every starter is projected for 12 or more home runs, with 4 starters projected over 20. My issue with the Twins' offense is fragility. Can Royce Lewis and Carlos Correa play a full season? Max Kepler, Byron Buxton, Alex Kirilloff all have dealt with their fair share of injuries. They have 2 players that recorded 500 ABs last year. One was Carlos Correa, and the other one was Carlos Santana, who they just acquired. I love the talent. I expect them to make it into the playoffs, and that's where I'll start to invest if they're all healthy. I make the win total 84.5 and the division odds closer to plus 125. By my numbers, it has me leaning a little bit towards the under, but my baseball brain likes them more than my numbers do. It's just a pass for me. The New York Yankees have a projected win total of 93.5, and my number, 92.5. This Yankees team has boom or bust written all over it. Last year's line was 93.5, and even though I'm a Yankee fan, I wrote that I lean towards the under. It was a team with a similar amount of downside to this year's team, but the 2024 Yankees have separated themselves from last year's team because this squad has so much upside. The Yankees season hangs in the balance of critical pieces. Carlos Rodon, Nestor Cortez Jr., Anthony Rizzo, DJ LeMahieu, and Marcus Stroman all can regain form, but will they? That is the question. I never bet on Yankees futures for 2 reasons. Number 1, they are often inflated, as they are generally the most popular team to bet on. Number 2 is I'm a Yankee fan, so I'd prefer not to make any picks on them. For anyone wondering, like I said, I make the line 92.5, so I see 1 win of value on the under. But again, pass for me. The Oakland Athletics have a projected win total of 57 wins, and my number, 59.5. But I'm about to give you a bet on the Oakland A's. This line is too low, and it has a lot to do with last season. The Athletics had one of the lowest win totals of all time last year at 59.5, but it was also one of the most bet unders. Bettors cashed on the A's after only winning 50 games in 2023. They dropped the win total by 2 games, even though this A's team is better than last year. I know that's not saying much, but the A's have sneakily solidified their rotation, moved Mason Miller to the closer role, and the offense is better. They added Alex Wood and Ross Stripling, who nobody really cares about, but it's much more solid than the back end last season. And the reason I say nobody cares about them is because they're not sexy names. They're not throwing 100 miles an hour, but they're still fine pitchers. And a guy who is throwing 100 miles an hour is Luis Medina, who has seen his velocity jump in spring training. And JP Sears and Paul Blackburn are both solid arms. It's not a bad rotation, but also don't sleep on Joe Doyle. He was known for electric stuff, but the command was never there. In the early goings of spring, the command looks fantastic. If everything clicks for him, watch out. The bullpen killed the A's last year, and while it's still going to finish near the bottom of the league, I don't expect it to be historically bad, especially since they moved Mason Miller to closer, added Trevor Gott, and converted Kyle Muller into more of a swingman. That doesn't sound groundbreaking, but it's improvements nonetheless. The offense also has a full year of Zach Geloff, who burst onto the scene last year. Shea Langeliers I expect to break out as well. Brent Rooker and Seth Brown are both good bets to hit 20 home runs each, and Esteury Ruiz led the American League in stolen bases last year. There are pieces to be excited about in Oakland. All 7 projection systems I've examined have the A's winning 60 games at a minimum. However, they had the same thoughts last year. I don't think the A's bottom out again and miss every projection again. I see 60-plus wins in the A's future, and I'm putting 2.2 units on the over 57 wins. The Seattle Mariners have a projected win total of 86.5, and my number, 86.5. Here we go again. The Mariners were my dream baby last year. I had them in every which way. They just scraped over the win total, which cashed, but did not achieve my dream of them winning the AL and the World Series. It's the same rotation with more experience under their belt. Love. The lineup improved even when losing Jared Kelenic. The bullpen has a 3-headed monster at the top. Gregory Santos, Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, but the depth in the bullpen isn't as good as previous years. I make the line 86.5 as well. Right, last year I was bullish on this Mariners team, but this year I'm going to take a back seat and I'll see what happens. It's a pass for me, and now knowing it's a pass, congratulations Mariners, you just won the 2024 World Series. The Tampa Bay Rays have a projected win total of 84.5, and my number, 86.5. Here comes another bet for you. We're all over the Rays this season, people. I've been doing this for 5+ years and have never encountered a team that's so disrespected year in and year out by projection systems than the Rays. Yes, they lost Wander Franco and Tyler Glasnow. Yes, Shane McClanahan is out for the season. Seems like the walls are crashing in. But didn't they last year? Last year's win total was 89.5. Didn't everybody get injured? Remember Drew Rasmussen, Jeffrey Springs, Shane McClanahan? I mean, all these guys were hurt. Wander Franco only played 112 games. The Rays won 99 games last year, people. Did we forget? They lose players and it never really matters. The Rays are the kings of extracting value from other clubs or getting the most out of their farm system. Zach Eflin went from a swingman to a borderline ace last year. Aaron Savali has turned into a really good arm for them. Taj Bradley still has tons of talent in the rotation. Ryan Pepiot, who they got for Glasnow, has top of the rotation stuff and dominated for the Dodgers in the second half. The rotation and the bullpen are still really deep, and they have reinforcements if those guys go down, just like they always do. Don't count out the return for Jeffrey Springs or Drew Rasmussen either this season. Now, the offense, they subtract Luke Raley and Wander Franco. What'd they do? Well, they added Jose Caballero from the Seattle Mariners, and you aren't ready for Junior Caminero. They also could add Curtis Mead or Jonathan Aranda whenever they want to. Do you see what I'm getting at here? It's still a lineup with Yandy Diaz, Randy Rosarina, Isaac Paredes, Brandon Lowe, Josh Lau. This lineup finished 4th in OPS last season among 30 teams. I don't see much of a downgrade from last year. It's still the Rays. They won 99 games last year. The last time they were under this number was in 2017. I make the win total 86.5. I think they have a greater shot than 50-50 to make the playoffs. So what did I do? I bet 2.2 units on over 84.5 wins. I bet 1 unit, additionally, on them to make the playoffs at plus 130. And I also bet their division odds. Half unit at plus 700. I think those odds should be closer to plus 500. Do I actually think they win the division? I think they could. Value play on the division. Playoffs, win total, love, value play on the division odds at plus 700. 2.2 units on over 84.5. 1 unit plus 130 on them to make the playoffs. Half unit on them to win the American League East at plus 700. The Texas Rangers have a projected win total of 89.5, and my number, 88.5. I want no part of the 2023 World Series champions in the regular season. Not because I don't like them. I just don't really see any value. It makes sense. Former champion rarely sees value in the following season. I'm excited about them if they do make the playoffs. I'll be looking to back them then. I'm worried about the pitching depth early on, but DeGrom, Scherzer, Tyler Mahle all should be back at some point. I'm more excited to bet on this team during the season than to track them over an entire season, if that makes sense. My line for them is 88.5, so I'm a tad lower than the market, so I guess I'll lean the under, but I'm definitely not betting on the under with this Texas Rangers squad. The Toronto Blue Jays have a projected win total of 86.5, and my number, 85.5. Rounding out the American League is a pretty boring answer. I don't really see any value on this team either, right? I make the line 85.5 for the Blue Jays this season, so it could warrant a bet on the under, but I'm just staying away. Similarly to the Yankees, this team has boom or bust written all over it. But there's also injury concerns already, right? Kevin Gausman and Alek Manoah are dealing with early shoulder issues. That's not a good sign. But what will we get from guys like Dalton Varsho, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Alejandro Kirk, George Springer, right? I like the pitching a lot, but what's Alek Manoah even going to look like? There's just so much uncertainty here. So I'm just going to be a bit lower in the market. That said, I could see a world where the Blue Jays win 90+ games in 2024. But put it all together, massive stay away from me. I guess I'll lean towards the under. It's time for the National League. And if you've been enjoying the video so far, again, make sure to hit that subscribe button because coming up, we got awards videos and season-long player props. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. We start in the National League with the Arizona Diamondbacks and their projected win total at 83.5, and my number, 84.5. If you've been around, you cashed in with us on our biggest bet of the season last year, Arizona Diamondbacks over 74.5 wins. I thought they'd be in the low 80s at the end of the 2023 season, but I didn't think they'd make a run to the World Series. So I'm not giving myself a total pat on the back, but our biggest bet last year was the Diamondbacks over 74.5. Last season, I thought the Diamondbacks win total should be in the 78.5 range. I put them at 85 this season, even though most projection systems think the number should be closer to 83.5 or 84.5 this season. Teams that head to the World Series are often overinflated the following season, but I still think they're underrating Arizona. This team is better than last year, and I feel like everybody just thought it was a flash in the pan team. It ain't. They're here to stay. Adding Eugenio Suarez, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Jock Peterson completely fell under the radar. They aren't the players that can carry a team, but they're all above average players who were badly needed to fix holes that the Arizona Diamondbacks need plugging. I expect Gallen to regress a little bit, but he doesn't need to be as great as last year for this team to get back to 84 wins. Brandon Pfaadt proved in the postseason he could be a solid middle of the rotation arm with upside for more. Merrill Kelly's as steady as they come. You throw Eduardo Rodriguez into the fold with a combination of Ryan Nelson and Tommy Henry filling out the 5 spot, that's one of the best rotations in the National League. The offense lacked 2 things going into 2024. They needed to find a third baseman, and they needed to add some pop to a lineup that finished 22nd in home runs. What did they do? Eugenio Suarez is going to hit third, and Jock Peterson is going to hit a bunch of bombs. Now, they both didn't rack up home runs last year, but they both played in incredibly pitcher-friendly ballparks. They're both boosts to a lineup looking for sluggers. They have plenty of speed and contact guys from Corbin Carroll, who might win the MVP, Ketel Marte, and Alek Thomas. And the bullpen gets a full season from Paul Sewald, and we saw Andrew Saalfrank and Ryan Thompson step up their game in the postseason. It's a much deeper unit than last season. Most people are just not paying attention to Arizona. What if they are the next 2015-2016 Kansas City Royals and go on a little run here? I wouldn't be shocked at all. I only see about a win and a half of value, but it's enough to lay the juice to win 1 unit on their win total. If you only have 84.5, it'd probably be a pass based on value, but between you and me, I think 85 plus is in their future. I'm laying the juice 83.5 at -115. Give me that over. The Atlanta Braves have a projected win total of 101.5, and my projection for them 101.5. If you know anything about baseball, you understand that the Braves are insanely good. We somehow got a plus price on their division odds last year, and now they're -250 or higher. The win total at 101.5, it's like, oh, is that just super overinflated? No, I think it's completely warranted. I won't even stop you if you want to take the Braves over, even though I just can't do it as a gambler. I cannot take overs on 100 win totals, but this is one that I don't even mind. Adding Chris Sale, Aaron Bummer, and Jared Kelenic will help this team be better than it was last year. If you want to take one of these 100 plus win total overs, I would go with the Braves over the Dodgers, even though both teams are going to be awesome. But overall in the Braves, it's a pass for me. The Chicago Cubs have a projected win total of 84.5, but my number 82.5. Truthfully, I'm not sure what to do with the Cubs. My line for them is 82.5, so I definitely lean towards the under. However, I didn't find myself taking a position against the Cubs for a few reasons. Pythagorean win expectancy estimates how many games a team should win based on runs scored and allowed. The Cubs were -7 in that metric. Only the Padres and Royals finished lower in 23. While it's a negative number, it's actually a good thing. Points to good luck being on the Cubs side in 24. If you flip the result of all one-run games for Chicago last year, they finished with 86 wins. The Cubs were a playoff caliber team for most of the season before running out of gas at the end. That's probably one of the reasons the Cubs went out and hired Craig Counsell as their new manager. They also brought in Shota Imanaga in the offseason, who was an upgrade over Marcus Stroman, and they brought back Cody Bellinger. Last year's line was 77.5, which the Cubs soared over. I did move them up after last year's performance. You have to, but the market appears to just be more bullish on them than I am. I think the Cubs are solid, and my win total tells me to take the under, but I'm not going to trust my own number on this one because I think the Cubs genuinely have a lot of upside this season, so it's a pass for me. Cincinnati Reds have a projected win total of 82.5. My number, 80.5. Reds Nation, you and I are friends, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but similarly to the Cubs, my number is a tad lower on the Reds, but I'm not about to fade the youth machine with so many exciting players. There's so much unknown for the Reds, which often creates even more excitement. The rotation, loaded with talent, but many of them are unproven and have dealt with a lot of injuries. The offense is loaded with young stars, but a sophomore slump is natural. Do all of these young players step up or take a step back? The baseball fan in me is rooting for success, but the gambling Grinch in me is saying 82.5 is just too high. Pythagorean win projection for them last year was 77, and we would see the same result if one-run games were flipped. Again, the baseball fan in me says the over. The numbers say the under. It's a hard pass, but I'm going to be tuning in to a bunch of Reds games, and I hope they go way over because, truthfully, I love the Reds. I love this team. I love Spencer Steer and more. Go Reds, but I'm not betting on the win total. The Colorado Rockies have a projected win total of 60.5 wins, but my number, 59.5. The Rockies have a shot at the worst record in the league. They had another offseason that makes no sense. They brought in pitchers who rely on weak contact rather than strikeouts. That can work on some teams, but Colorado is not the place for that. It's as if the front office has no idea where they play. I make the Rockies line 59.5, so I see slight value on the under. However, I will be turning into Cal Quantrill starts, and that's about it, because you guys know Cal Quantrill's my guy, and he could propel them to a World Series ring. It's a pass. The Los Angeles Dodgers projected win total is 104.5. 104.5. That is crazy. But at the same time, my number, 103.5. Similarly to the Braves, you don't need this video or my advice with the Dodgers. This is one of the highest win totals of all time, and they deserve it. The Dodgers spent $1 billion this offseason to bring in two of the world's greatest baseball players in Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Not to mention they added Tyler Glasnow, Teoscar Hernandez, James Paxton. They just added so many people. It's the best roster in the sport, but 104.5, it's just so high. I make the line 103.5, so my number says lean towards the under, but I'd prefer not to be on the other side of the Dodgers train. They'll probably be minus 200 or greater in every game they play. They're a regular season juggernaut with a worldwide fanfare, so it'll be rare to find value on them this season. They have 3 of the top 5 in odds for MVP. Just stay away. It's a pass for me. The Miami Marlins have a projected win total of 78.5 wins. My number is 74.5, and this is my largest bet of the MLB season. I made a 27-minute video breaking down why this is a 5-unit play for me. So if you want to check it out, it's on our YouTube channel. You just search biggest bet of my life, MLB win total future. You'll find it. I faded everything on the Miami Marlins. Respectfully, Marlins fans. Right? It's just numbers. I don't have anything out for them. It's just numbers. But if you don't care about listening to the ton of analysis, I hope you do. I'm hammering the under 78.5 wins. The Milwaukee Brewers have a projected win total of 76.5, and now my number is 78.5, but I'm attacking the Brewers in a different way. The Brewers have a 79.5 win total before trading away Corbin Burnes. It dropped to 76.5, which I thought was too big of an adjustment. That said, I see the Brewers season going one of two ways. Scenario 1, they get off to a rocky start, never gain any momentum going into the All-Star break. They start unloading pieces like Devin Williams or Willy Adames and finish towards the bottom of the division. Scenario 2, the young offensive pieces take that next step. Jackson Chourio, Garrett Mitchell, Bryce Terang, Sal Frelick, and Joey Ortiz all can be above average big leaguers, but will they is the question. The Brewers bullpen is still legit, and while the rotation is worse off than most years, this team still won 92 games last year. It was on the backs of some one-run luck as they finished plus 11 in those games. At the same time, the Pythagorean win total was 90, so only 2 wins short of their 92-win season. There is a reason the Brewers were great in close games. They have an elite bullpen. The Marlins' one-run luck, which you heard in my other video, was simply luck. Corbin Burnes and Brandon Woodruff are enormous pieces to lose, but the Brewers give me a similar feeling to the Rays. It's a deep team with a lot of young talent that I think will compete in their division. I bet the Brewers to win the Central plus 800. Now, I think that it should be closer to plus 600. It's pure value. You can bet on the over 76.5 wins. I think that's fine, but I think this team either does really, really well and soars over that win total, or they're not even close. They sell off pieces and it ends up being a bad season. So I personally found value. I put 1 unit at plus 800 on the Brewers to win the division. You can hate it. You cannot bet it. It's one of the most value-laden plays of this MLB season because I make their division odds plus 600. I think a lot of the teams in the Central are much closer than a lot of the media would want to tell you. That's just my opinion. You could disagree. Don't bet the Brewers. I bet the Brewers at plus 800 to win the NL Central. The New York Mets have a projected win total of 82.5, and my number, 82.5. I don't know what to do with the Mets this season. When I calculated my win total projection for them, I came away thinking this is the least confident number of any 30 MLB teams. This is a bridge year for the Mets. What does that even mean? If the Mets are competitive at the deadline, will Steve Cohen want to hold pat and not make any moves? If the Mets aren't competitive, it's hard to fathom that the Mets would trade off impending free agents like Pete Alonso. Then you factor in Kodai Senga's healthcare to start the season, and I'm just confused. I like this offense a lot, mainly because I still believe in Brett Beatty at third base. It was a down year in 23, but it's such a talented lineup that I find it hard to believe they'd just come up short again. The pitching staff without Senga doesn't look special, but they have 5 arms that can compete daily. It's not a rotation where I see any automatic losses. With Senga, the team rotation, I think slots in the 14 to 17 range among 30 MLB teams. The bullpen gets the best closer in baseball back in Edwin Diaz. They also grabbed 2 arms with upside in Shintaro Fujinami and Jorge Lopez. I made the number 83.5 with the Mets before Senga straightened his shoulder, so I actually saw a little bit of value in the over. And I don't mind the over if we still hear good news, but for now, I just don't know what to do, and I'm staying away. The Philadelphia Phillies have a projected win total of 89.5, and my number, 90.5. When capping the National League, it appears as if the Braves and the Dodgers, and then it's everybody else. I don't see it that way. I would put the Phillies firmly in that conversation. The Phillies might be my World Series pick, but that doesn't mean we're going to hammer them in the regular season. World Series pick, at least coming out of the National League. It's a team that normally starts off slow and then turns on the Jets in the second half. The Phillies are very streaky. They can sweep the Dodgers, but then they'll go to Colorado and then get swept by the Rockies. It's really tough to bet on them in the regular season. You got to get them while they're hot and fade them when they're cold. I'm higher on the market than the Phillies because of the lack of weaknesses. They can withstand a long season with so much talent on their roster. Trey Turner's first half woes should be behind him after settling in Philly. There is no need for Kyle Schwarber to play the outfield anymore, which improves the defense. The bullpen sported some breakouts from Orion Kerkering and Jeff Hoffman. It's a fantastic unit, as we saw in the playoffs. They also brought back Aaron Nola and extended Zach Wheeler. Everyone's wallet is taken care of. Time to win. The Phillies are minus 220 to make the playoffs. I don't see them beating the Braves in their division, so I'm avoiding their division odds. I make the line on the regular season a win higher than the market does, but there's no real value in the regular season, but I'll be back to back them come playoff time. Shout out the bank. The Pittsburgh Pirates have a projected win total of 74.5, and my number, 74.5. I was hoping for a more exciting season in Pittsburgh. I understand why they didn't shell out money for free agents based on their timeline, but I can still want something because I'm a human being and I have emotions. I don't have a problem with the offense. O'Neal Cruz set to return. It's a balanced attack. They finished 22nd in OPS last season, but I project them more to be in the 16 to 20 range this season. The issue with the Pirates is the rotation. Behind Mitch Keller, it's garbage. I mean, come on. Paul Skeens coming up can really help that, as do prospects like Jared Jones and Anthony Solamento, but 2025 seems like the year to start investing in Pittsburgh. I also think this team will trade veterans at the deadline. They invested in one-year deals for veterans looking to bounce back. Guys like Roddy Tellez, Aroldis Chapman, Martin Perez, Marco Gonzalez, Yasmani Grandal, and others will all be on the block if they turn in a good first half. The future looks promising in Pittsburgh. Window ain't open quite yet. It's a pass for me. The San Diego Padres have a projected win total of 81.5, and my number, 82.5. We spoke about the one-run rule in my Marlins video and then in this video as well. Teams who experience large discrepancies in their win-loss record in one-run games often regress to the mean. If the Padres' one-run record was flipped last year, they would have went 96-66. Crazy, right? That's how dysfunctional the Padres were last year. Beyond the field of play, we heard rumors about how destructive the clubhouse dynamic is all season long. I don't know if all of them are true, but it's clear the Padres did not play winning ball last year. With all the talent on this roster, their coming up short was one of the biggest disappointments of the 2023 season. Blake Snell, Juan Soto, Josh Hader, gone. They're trying to cut payroll after spending tons of it in the past few years. All of this bad news dropped the Padres win total to 81.5 after last season's win total was 93.5. I really want to buy the bad news here. The Padres are still loaded with top-end talent, from Fernando Tatis Jr. to Xander Bogaerts to Manny Machado to Ha-Seong Kim, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish. While they lost Hader, they did go out and sign Yuki Matsui and Woo Suk Go, both with strong pedigrees in the MPB and KBO. They also added Wandy Peralta to the fold to create an above-average bullpen. Michael King was the big piece that headed to San Diego in the Juan Soto trade. He's a pitcher I was very high on with the Yankees. Now that he's in a pitcher's park behind a solid defense, watch out, he's going to be good. Did the Padres wake up from that 2023 nightmare, or do they stay asleep? My number says to take the over, but I'm a scared little chicken baby shit. And I've decided not to bet on their over. But I think you should. No, it's still the Padres. Pass. But I do show value on the over. San Francisco Giants projected win total is 81.5, and my number, 81.5. I hope Giants fans don't yell at me, but let's be real here. The Giants are the barometer for average MLB teams. Is your favorite team worse than the Giants? They're probably below average. Are they better? They're above average. 81.5, perfect line. I would have faded the Giants if they didn't have a solid offseason. I like the long-term pickup of Jung Hoo Lee a lot, and getting Mac Chapman on that contract I think is great value. Jorge Soler should be welcomed into that clubhouse with open arms after the Giants finished 19th in home runs last season. While the offense has definitely improved, it's still a unit that finished 26th in OPS last season. The rotation looks like a shell of its former self. Kyle Harrison is slotted to be the two-star with only 34 innings of major league work. Logan Webb is the man. Love Logan Webb. But what will Jordan Hicks look like? And then beyond that, what is it, openers? Truthfully, the Giants are one of those teams I've never really figured out how to cap. I feel like I'm always down on them in the regular season. So honestly, just do whatever you want with the Giants. For me, it's a pass. I'm off them. Good luck, Giants. Pass. The St. Louis Cardinals have a projected win total of 85.5, and my number, 85.5. I don't mean to bore you when my numbers are aligned, but again, value is value and I don't see it. And I was really excited to jump on the Cardinals this season after a disaster of 2023, but it appears the market is equally as high on them this year. They should be leading the division in win total department and the division odds. I was hoping they'd be mixed in with the Reds and the Cubs, but they aren't. I like the additions they made to the rotation. They aren't sexy, but they're reliable. Kyle Gibson is 9th in Major League Baseball in innings since 2021. 9th! Miles Michaelis is cut from the same cloth. Lance Lynn is good for 150, and if his hamstring turns out okay, which is not a good sign, but hopefully he's good, Sonny Gray is going to be in the 180 inning range. It's not a rotation that wows anyone, right? But it's going to be durable, and it's going to keep them in games, and that's what the Cardinals need in order to be successful next season. And the offense, it's better than what it showed last year. I'm really excited for the duo of Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker to make an impact. I'm really high on Nolan Gorman and Lars Nootbaar. Goldie and Arenado are going to keep doing their thing, and then the rest of them are just Swiss Army knives. It's so well-rounded offensively and defensively. And the bullpen, they had a heavy workload last year, and they dealt with an injury to their closer, Ryan Helsley. It's a unit that should perform better with more rest this year. I thought I was high on them, giving them a win total of 85.5, but that's where they're at in the market, so it's a pass for me. Our last team are the Washington Nationals with a projected win total of 66.5, and my number, 66.5. The last team to discuss will be a boring one, not because the Nationals are boring, because I also just have them at 66.5. You'll hear more analysis on a certain player, a certain Washington National, when I come out with my season-long props and award predictions. The Nationals are currently trying to figure out who to build around, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Joey Meneses, Jesse Winker, Joey Gallo, and potentially Lane Thomas moved at the deadline to continue to reload on prospects. It's a fun offense that finished 21st in OPS, and I expect more of the same this season. The problem is the rotation was one of baseball's worst. And while there are no new names, it's not quite as bad as last year's stats show. Mackenzie Gore and Josiah Gray are both talented. Shout out, Josiah Gray was an all-star. And Jake Irvin is a fine rotation piece. The bullpen improved with a couple of signings, but can I sit here and tell you they won't be gone at the deadline? I can't. I make the line 66.5, so I'll pass on the Nationals in 24. That'll do it. We went through every MLB team. I told you whether to bet the over, the under, to lean a certain way, or to pass. Hopefully it was enough information for you. Let me know in the comments if you are tailing or fading any of the picks. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at PeterApple23. You can read all of my work on justbaseball.com. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel because I got another video coming out soon with award predictions, Cy Young's, MVPs, Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year, as well as season-long player props. So make sure to stay tuned, hit that big red subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.